Well, is it a junkyard or is it somebody's driveway? Sometimes it's kind of hard to tell. So, hope everybody's doing well. This is my driveway. Welcome back to my driveway. I haven't done a vehicle update in quite a while, so I thought I would do that in this video and just kind of show those who are interested what's going on. Before we get started, I thought I would extend a warm welcome to my Tyler's Neighborhood Garage super fans. Those one or two people who are here for every video, never missing one of them, and never fail to comment. I couldn't do it without you. So it's what keeps me going. It's what makes me get out here and battle the elements like I am this morning to do these videos for everyone, especially you guys. So please, please promise me you're never going to leave. You're never going to quit commenting. You're never going to quit picking apart what I do. I love it. Please, 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 please be here forever. Okay. So anyway, now we got the welcomes out of the way. Let's first talk about what is no longer here. So the first vehicle I sold this year was that 60. Actually, let's go back to last year. That was the 63 Oldsmobile. I think was the first one I sold last year, and that was one of those that I hung on to it for a long time. I just realized that I wasn't helping it anymore. I wasn't going to be able to do it. Wasn't going to finish it, and I took it apart partially with the intention of fixing it. I didn't take it apart all the way though. A little bit of a distinction there. And so then I've got my wits about me and covered it up and just left it like it was, and sold it to someone who was going to fix it up and put it back on the road with a different excuse me, with a different drivetrain on it. So hopefully he did that. That was last year. So anyway, so it went away early last year, probably April, something like that. And then in May, I think I sold the 66 Chrysler to a guy up north in the Midwest, and he has repainted that car and put different wheels on it and really fixed it up really nice. He really likes it. So it went to a good home. I was glad about that. I was, every time I sell something, I try not to sell it to someone who's just going to scrap it, even though like a couple of these things arguably probably that's about what they're worth. But so anyway, so it went to him, and he's really liking it, and so that was good. So anyway, kind of didn't do anything else with cars over the winter, and then this year early in the spring I started thinning out some more stuff. So first one I sold was that 95 Tahoe that I drove for about 2.5 or 3 years, and it sold very quickly. Sold the first person that came and looked at it, and he didn't even drive it. He just took off in it. So that was good, and so it went, I think, to a good home. I never had any trouble out of that truck. That thing, once I just did the fixes on it that needed to be done, it hung right in there. The thing, I would definitely have another one of those, except the only thing I really didn't like is that truck was underpowered badly. So ran fine, but it was underpowered, and it was not really, those SUVs like that, those 1500 SUVs are just not really the best tow vehicle, because they don't have the springs and things. Well, they're just good for on-road. I mean, you can get them in a four-wheel drive, but they're just not very cut out for doing either off-roading or stuff like that needs a lot of spring rate. So it would tow pretty good, but it would be really down in the back end when you did that. So anyway, it sold, and then the next one sold was that 69 Dart that I had. I fixed back up and drove for quite a while, and the first person came and looked at it, bought it, and he's enjoying it. I've seen pictures of it. He's put different wheels on it. Apparently nobody likes my taste in wheels, but yeah, it's alright. So anyhow, it went on, and he drove it home. He got on the he came up here and just got on the interstate with it and headed back home, and it's been running fine since, no problems. And that car did run great. I didn't get quite as much for it. Well, I'm leaving one of these out. I did sell that Plymouth Valiant, that 68. That's been a while, but I got more for that Valiant than I got for the Dart, because the Dart was a little bit rougher in the body. You know, it had been knocked around a bit pretty good in the rear end. You saw what I had to do to fix it. My version fix it. So anyway, so that went away. Went to a happy home. So anyway, it more or less brings us up to speed from there. And so I bought my brother's pickup truck. You've seen the video on it. So it's sitting here. I did put some wheels on it and fixed brakes. And it is due to go back in the shop over there now to get a clutch put in it, because I think the clutch is at the end of its lifespan, and it chatters really bad, and flywheel's probably worn out. So all that's got to come out and be replaced. So I've already got the clutch for it. And then the 75 Swinger over there I've already got the top done on it, and I'm waiting just to get it back in too. Probably going to be another over the winter project. That's usually when I work on stuff like that, but we got to continue with the floors and the trunk and all that, and just keep plugging away on it. So then this car, I kind of did the videos on this car kind of out of sequence. I've got a big long popcorn video on this car about all the stuff I've had to fix on it. This is a really solid Plymouth, but it's just one of these that over time it is somebody who's, well, let's just be charitable and say that I wouldn't call them a mechanic, but we'll call them someone who attempted to make repairs. Let's just say that was all over this car, and so everything they did poorly, or they used the wrong part, or they just did something that didn't last. So it's all original, and it does run good for the most part, and appears to drive good. And we'll get that video put together pretty soon and get it put up. But just to give you an idea, I'm not going to do much more talking about this car, because like I said, it's got its own series coming. So just to give you an idea about this car, that kind of stuff. So I was keep parking this car in the garage in there with the door closed and locked up, because I've been working on it quite a while, 3 months. And every time I come in the garage and then unlock the doors and come in, I just get overwhelmed by a big, like somebody on YouTube used to describe it, a gasoline-like odor. Well, the only thing that causes a gasoline-like odor is gasoline. So no leaks in it. I'd already looked in the gas tank. Gas tank's clean, looked original. And I had some problems with the line up at the fuel pump, but we resolved that, so that's not a big deal at all. Wasn't leaking physically, but it just stinked this garage up to high heaven. So not only is there a, kind of an explosion hazard, not really, but nothing, there's no power in there when I'm going, but I just didn't like that. And so I thought, well, for everything that's going on, there's got to be a reason. So I've started digging into it finally. And one thing I noticed is every time, I have my redneck gas cap. I have the gas cap for it, but I have this rag in here, and I'll explain why that is. So every time I got a new gas cap, the proper kind of gas cap, and every time I loosen the gas cap on it, not unloosen, every time you loosen the gas cap, I get a big now I actually hear the tank back there kind of make a little noise, like it had been expanded. It sounds funny, but it is kind of funny. But so that's what's going on. So I get this big like there's a lot of pressure built up, and there's not supposed to be a lot of pressure in here, because these cars use, that's a big source of confusion for people about how gas tanks are vented. But this car has it's a 72, so it has a final evolution of the venting system for the tank, which means it's got a line that comes out of the tank and goes up front, and it goes into the charcoal canister and all that, like any modern car after the early 70s. The early ones had a different kind of system, but it vented the tank. And then the ones like from 69, 70 to 69 down have a different kind that actually just physically dumps it out into the frame rail. So long story short, they all vent the tank. There is no reason for that to go on. So I got under there and looked at the tank to see if I could just kind of tell what was going on. I thought, well, something's plugged off, or something's pinched or blocked, or maybe there's been an insect in something. So the first thing, I'm not going to go under because I can just tell it just as good as I can show it. First thing I noticed was the vent line that comes from the front of the car to the back to the tank was chopped off back there. The rubber part was. It looked like it had tape or something wrapped around it, but that wouldn't, that wouldn't cause that. So that has nothing to do with it, if it's connected or not. So I go looking at the tank see what's going on with the vent on the tank, and there is no vent on the tank. It's supposed to be right up top center up there facing forward, a little 1/4 inch line. I think that's my guy coming to get this car over here. So anyway, I'm looking for this vent on the tank, and there isn't any vent. So it's not. It's actually somebody else. Sorry about that. My brother can't stand it when I'm with him. I get a text message. So long story short, unless I get in here and look at this thing and find out it's got the 4 corner vents on the side of it, which I don't think it does, there's no top vent, so that means this tank's been swapped out. It's an older tank like that. It's supposed to have the vent that comes off the tube for the filler tube and then down through the frame like my old cars did. So anyway, my nice, good condition gas tank's not the correct one. So what's happening is there's no vent in that tank, and so the tank just expands till it pops the vent. The cap actually got a pressure vacuum cap. It actually has a relief valve in it, which will vent at about 1.5 pounds of pressure PSI. So anyway, it's working, but all that nonsense is we're not going to do that. So I've got to get a tank for it, the right tank, and hook all that stuff back up. So, but somebody didn't notice that, I guess. So anyway, so that's that. But it's a good car. The top's rough on the top of it, but it's it's just like it rolled off the assembly line. All the condition of it, So along the way, I bought a nice car trailer, and it's a good one. It's got the good inset lights in it, and it's got the ramps that store themselves under there. The deck is original, and but the rest of it's got good tires on it and stuff. So I've used it some, haven't used it much, but that it's another one of those things that are just seem like they're going up in value. So I bought one when I could, and I think got a fair deal on it. So that brings us over to this pickup truck here, the old F350. So this truck, I'll just tell you now, this truck, I wasn't sure I was going to like this truck, and it's still kind of growing on me. But I went through it and spruced it up, made it look better, and fixed up the interior some, and did the cooling system and some other stuff up front mechanically, not a whole lot. But it ran fair. But the more I drove it, the better it ran. It had a couple episodes. This thing nearly stranded me a couple times early on. I drove it on after I first got it, cooling system done, got everything squared away with that. I took it on a little trip around, went about a 6-mile circuit, and I got about halfway through that, and I lost power. And had no more response to the accelerator. So I made sure I put diesel in both tanks. So anyway, I just was slowing down. So in desperation, I hit the button to swap the tanks. I didn't even know if that thing would work, but it did work. So I started pulling off the front tank and got it home, and turned out that the rear tank had a blocked off vent on it. So same thing, when I was taking the cap off back there, I heard psh, and these things, just being a heavy duty emissions truck, these things just they don't have a charcoal canister or anything like that, so you don't have to work. It just vents right out with a little weather cap on it underneath it. So that thing was blocked off, so I fixed that, and it's run okay on the tank just fine, no more problems. But then it did have another, like I said, another episode right here at the house. I drove it to town one day, and I came back not long after that first one. I came back and let it idle. I was going to go back out, so I headed back out, and I got going up the street there, and it acted like it was losing cylinders, just missing, you know, real bad, and it sounded like the crankshaft was about to come out of this thing. It just knocking and making all kinds of racket, just quack, 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 quack. I never heard a diesel sound like this ever. I thought, well, it's the end of that engine. So I got it back in here and tried to rev it up a little bit, and it just died. And then I had to crank and crank and crank, and finally it started back up and ran okay, and it's ran okay since. So that's been quite a long time. I don't know what that was. Sounds to me like something with maybe the IPR valve got stuck or something. But it, you know, and it was leaking some oil out of the turbo, and just doing a variety of things, I guess, mainly from sitting. So I've got out and run it kind of hard, you know, within reason with a truck like this. But it's behaved a lot better. I think it's going to need some. It quit the leaking, but I think it's going to need some valve cover harnesses put on it. It was hard to start last year when it was cold. And it for sure needs a vacuum pump, because I have no vacuum at idle. If I don't find a leak somewhere, so we're going to have to do that. But got it loaded up there. It's the engine now, that green Valiant, which has been sitting in here. Ever since I've been working on cleaning out stuff and gonna sell stuff, and just I've been doing a lot of parts collecting, and I'm getting kind of burned out on doing the same kind of cars on and on and on. So anything I think I'll need to keep for those two cars there, I'm going to keep. The rest of it I'm going to sell either individually to somebody, or I'm going to sell it at the car show coming up. But for now I'm going to put it up in my storage up there. That brings us to this car. This car's been sitting around. Don't mind my plastic recycling. Our recycler closed down in Athens, so I've kind of gotten behind on recycling, but I've found out where to take it now up here in Tennessee. Anyway, this car, I think the guy's coming today to pick this thing up. I've got it sold. He says he's gonna build this car, but he just wants the car itself. It doesn't need the doors or the fenders, so I've kept a lot of stuff like that stuff and a few other things. I got a box full of stuff in there that I've kept off this car, so I didn't get a lot for it. Not going to get a lot for it, but it will equal out. But he needs just the whole of it himself. And this is another one that, you know, just it sat here long enough, and I just kind of you know, I accepted that I wasn't going to be able to do this one, and just moved on from it. And I know by saying that and by showing this is going to open up a line of attack from one of my super fans that says, you didn't fix that car, you should have fixed that car, you could have fixed that car, you had everything to fix that car, why didn't you fix that car? Well, it's because I was smart enough to know that the parts off this car are worth as much as the car is itself. So duh, why wouldn't I do that? And the car's going to be used. I mean, it's got this big dent in it, so somebody's going to have to put a quarter on it. So like Kenny said, you got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them. The time to know that you're not capable to do something and not up to it, don't have what it takes, not the man, it's overwhelming you. You're a collector, not a mechanic. You're a collector, not a car restorer. The time to know that is before you have every last piece of it in a pile scattered somewhere. That's the age-old. That is the age-old mistake people tend to make. They think that they're Chip Foose or one of these other guys who's got a $300,000 shop with linoleum floors, LED lighting, however how much, you know, 10,000 square feet of floor space, 3 bays, air conditioning, heat, climate controlled, computerized alarm system, whatever it takes to do all this. So they see this over here and they think that's what they've got to work with, and so they just, you know, they blow a car apart and they don't know if they can put it back together. So anyway, there's no way, not here. It takes me 4 or 5 months to do one, to get one of these cars that's actually not, you know, like that blue one over there. So I realize my limitations, I accept them, and I work within them. So this car's going to go on to a new home. Like I said, he is going to use it. That's what he claims. If he shows up, you know, he's already been here and looked at it, but he didn't have his trailer with him. So he claims he's coming back today. So anyway, so it's going to go on to a new home and hopefully live a new life, and I'm going to keep what's left and all that. So I think that's mainly it. I did buy, let's see, what else? No, I guess that was it. Like I said, don't mind my yard. I've been behind. I've been out for a whole week at a time traveling for work, and I'm basically making pit stops here. So the last one is this company car that I got in September of 21, just about 3 years ago. And so far, so good with this thing. It's just got about 110,000 miles on it. And I wouldn't say this is, we'll do our own video at some point on this car, what I thought of it, but I wouldn't say this is potentially Nissan's absolute best effort at one of these Altimas, but it's pretty good. It's not a Camry, but it's pretty good, and nothing's, you know, it's been fine, so it's behaved itself. And so we're going to leave it at that so we don't jinx it. But they just retired one of these. The company just retired one of these, I think, like this one, a 19 or a 20, I think, that had 278,000 miles on it.